Like Frisco, settlers of Widstoe thought to harvest their fortunes out of the land, but by farming instead of mining. Nestled in Johns Valley northeast of Bryce Canyon, Widstoe's soil met its first historic farmers in the early 1900s. John and Julia Ann Adair bought a sheep ranch from John R. Campbell and worked the land to produce good crops of oats, wheat, and barley. On the heels of their success, other families moved into the valley, and by 1908, quite a few families were living in the area known as Adairville. Settlers continued to move in, and the community changed its name to Houston in honor of James Houston, an LDS leader in the area. But it was in 1910, when Garfield County was opened to homesteaders, that the population really grew. In the same year, its name changed again, this time to Winder. Life for Winder farmers was not easy. There was always work to be done.
I don't know that there are too many people who work harder than farmers. In the past, or even in the present, it is unrelenting. It's a year-round job. You start in the spring, early on, with plowing the fields, breaking it, getting the seed in. During the summer, then you're tending your crops, you're irrigating. There's the cultivating that goes on in the midsummer. In the fall, harvesting goes on. In the late fall, going up into the mountains for wood. All winter long, the kind of household production that goes on, fixing the houses, fixing your equipment, tending the farm animals. Part of what these ghost towns, the reason they become ghost towns is the environment is so difficult. They're very high, they're very dry, winters are difficult, and so the farmers got to face that year-round.
Success in producing crops from this otherwise barren land, however, spurred development on. Dry farming, a technique utilizing deep groundwater, produced crops of wheat and oats that would have been unthinkable by means of conventional farming techniques. In 1912, the government erected a post office, and sawmills east of town provided lumber for the ever-increasing demand. The name Winder, in honor of John R. Winder of the LDS Church First Presidency, proved to be too popular, as many other Utah towns shared the same name. To decrease confusion in post offices around the state, the town took on its final name in 1917, that of Widstoe. Inasmuch as dry farming fueled the town's existence, the people decided to honor LDS Apostle John A. Widstoe, a dry farming expert who provided counsel on crop selection in the harsh valley.
He's one of the famous Utah State extension specialists, if you will, or early agricultural teachers up here at Utah State. And a pioneer, again, in irrigation, and particularly in dry farming techniques, a real advocate of that kind of small-scale farms and farming communities.
By this time, the town was booming. In 1920, the population had reached 1,100. Farmers were able to capitalize on the inflated grain prices due to World War I-induced shortages.
They raised grains, beautiful grain, dry farm grains, and they thought they was going to get rich.
The citizens of Widstoe worked hard, but found time to enjoy themselves in these years of prosperity.
Especially in these Mormon communities that get set up, social life revolves around the church itself. Dancing, parties.
The town boasted 2 hotels, a Mormon church, a social hall, and many homes. The tight-knit community gathered often, and dances and other activities were always looked forward to.
I can remember the good times we had in Widstoe. We had dances and a lot of entertainment there. Oh, we danced and we built bonfires and went hiking up the canyons, and we had a lot of fun. We enjoyed it. In the winter, the school would take us on sleigh rides. We'd just about freeze to death, and they'd heat big rocks and put in the wagon to warm our feet with.
In fact, they even had a baseball team that competed with other towns in the county. Sadly, though, these days of abundance were numbered, and drought plagued the farming community.
In the 1920s, you also begin to get the beginnings of the period of drought years. So you had the decline in grain prices, drought, and people begin to leave that land, especially that marginal land. Dry farming collapses in the state.
Didn't have enough water to keep them going, enough snow.
10 years of plenty were followed by 10 years of dry skies. Water flumed in from Pine Lake was not enough to replenish the parched ground. Settlers were forced to leave, and by 1930 the population had shrunk to 210 people.
A lot of them went to Utah County.
By 1935, only 17 families remained, and by the end of the next year, the federal government had purchased the homes and land, all sold voluntarily to get out of their high taxes and unproductive soil.
We really felt bad when we left Widstoe, because I left my family, my dad and mother and brothers and sisters, and I really, for 10 years, I'd have went back down there and lived. I'd even lived in a tent if I got back to Widstoe.
Most buildings were torn down and the valley was returned to grazing land. East of the town on a hill lies the Widstoe Cemetery, where more than 100 people are buried. Their tombstones, along with a few structural remains, are all that is left to testify of the existence of the once lively town. The remaining buildings still make an attractive little ghost town. The remainder of the town consists of the center, church, school building with the small cupola, several homes, sheds, and other buildings. The structures now sit in various stages of decay, reminding us of the many lives once lived here. One can now only imagine the thriving community that once existed in this valley.
It was quite a happy place.